Hello, career thought leaders. It's good to tech with you about our Friday session. So, welcome to Friday. Happy Friday with AI. So, we get a lot of questions about using AI in our work, using these new AI tools. And someone asked, how could I use a new feature in NotebookLM to help my students? So, we're going to talk about how you could use this tool. I'll show you a little bit how I'm using it for business and about how you could use it for your students. So first, I want to show you a few things that are done in NotebookLM so you can join in and see what's being done already. And then we're going to go through step by step how you could actually create something like this for your business or for your clients. So feel free, drop a note in the chat. Let me know what you want to see and what is relevant to you so that we can answer your questions as well. Let's dive into one of the notebooks that I have created. And when you go into NotebookLM, and this is, well, it should be free. We've had some colleagues say that they're having trouble getting access to it, but as far as we can research, it is still a free option for you to create a notebook. You can get up to 50 of them for free with a free Google account. And in each of those, you can have kind of depends on your level in Google, but you can have 20 to 50 different sources. And we'll look at the sources here in just a second. But one of the things that I did earlier this week was create a NotebookLM for our resources that we share in our weekly newsletter. And so we were looking at, what's going on in AI and job search and all of those things. And so you can see over here on the left, I've put in all of the sources that we used in our newsletter. And so you can read the newsletter, but then we created this so that you can listen to the overview as well. And these tools are just super cool because over here on the side, you can create an audio overview and a video overview. These take a long time, so I wanted to show you ones that were already done instead of demoing, because we don't want to wait here for 5 minutes for it to finish. But you can come in and you can choose your format. So the deep dive, the brief, critique, debate. And I typically use the deep dive because I want to show what's going on in the articles, but you could use any of these and I'll probably play around with some other types as we go. And then you can type in a prompt of what you want it to focus on so that you get the content you're really looking for. So let's say our colleague Emily, she wants to upload some of her resources or even her own lectures. You can do this from transcripts. You can upload transcripts. I do that a lot so that I can create content from the pieces that I'm making in these videos. And then it will be able to create more content from that. It's really cool. So after we hit generate with the audio or video, looks very similar, that you can choose what kind of style you want. Then you get these videos that it creates. And I posted one of these on LinkedIn last week where it's got the skills edge and it created this video. Didn't actually love the focus of this video because I didn't prompt it. I just wanted to see what it would do. And I would do better prompting next time. In fact, I did it again. Actually, I did AI's Great Divide, where I did prompt it and tell it a little bit more about what I wanted. And then the audio here, this goes through the
Welcome to the deep dive
of all of the different
Today we are undertaking, a really critical
that I
mission,
had put in.
cutting through.
And the deep dive always uses those two voices, one male, one female. So it's obvious that it's created from NotebookLM. So I usually tell people that when I'm doing this, that it's from NotebookLM. But it's a cool tool, lots of ways to multimedia show what you want to do. But how do we create one that maybe we could use with a job seeker? That's what we want to talk about today. And I want to talk specifically, and we're going to use Perplexity, but I'll put a little caveat on here that I used to go to Perplexity and it was kind of seen as the research tool and it didn't hallucinate as much. Well, now it started to do that more. It started to hallucinate and make stuff up more. So as we go through this process, you have to check the links. You want to click through and see, does this look right? Does this fit what I'm looking for? Is this correct? And so I was going through Perplexity, and I'll show you a little bit about what I was doing and some of the prompts I was using. to create the backdrop material that we want for building our notebook for this client. So let's say we're working with a client who wants to go from construction project manager to tech program or project manager. And you'll actually see that some of the sources that came up started to look at the difference between a program and a project manager. Be a good thing for my client to dive into. And in fact, we'll go into the notebook here in just a second and see what it tells us is the difference. But I did some research using Perplexity to pull some of sources around the differences, and it wrote out answers for me. But again, I'd want to check these sources and see what these articles are saying. And actually, particularly in this project, of course, because I wanted to do this for this demo, a lot of these links didn't work, as you'll see when we get to the notebook. And so I had to go back and find links that did work. I didn't ultimately port over any of this content that Perplexity developed, because when I saw how many of the links didn't work, I want to pull from the actual links, not this data that I'm not quite sure where it got this information, since so many of the links it suggested didn't work. But I got some ideas, I got some links, it started to pull together some of those sources for me. I would click through these, I would make sure they worked. As I'm going, I'm figuring out, is this the right content? We got the key responsibilities of a tech program manager versus a construction project manager, gathering those up here. And it started to build a chart for me, which is great. We'll see how NotebookLM can do that for us as well. And then I started to look at what is the demand and salary for a specific geographic location, because we know more and more hiring is moving back to being geographically bound instead of remote. So what does it look like in this area that my client might be in? And I got some research related to that. So I gathered all of these links and I put them into NotebookLM, and that's where I want to do the rest of the work for my client, because it has these other functionalities that will help me connect into what does this look like for the client. Could I develop an audio for them, right? Some of these other tools that I could do in NotebookLM that I can't do in any other tool. Actually, Google Gemini will create audio overviews for you inside of Gemini, but only if you upload a specific source or you use the deep research tool, and then it will give you that audio tool. Otherwise, you got to go over to NotebookLM. There are some competitors to NotebookLM that you could research and find. Why I like NotebookLM is because it is free. It's in my Google account. If you're facing some challenges there, or if you want to just try out other tools, there are other competitors to NotebookLM. But we're just going to dive into here, looking specifically at the notebook I was creating for this client. There we go. Technical Program Manager in Austin. So you can see right away that Notebook actually helped me figure out that a lot of the sources from Perplexity were bad. Then I put in some new sources. I went back and forth a little bit to get some good content to make sure we had a good basis for NotebookLM. If you haven't seen me demo NotebookLM before, I'll say that the reason NotebookLM is different than ChatGPT, Gemini, any of those, is that it is pulling only from the sources you upload or connect. It is not like all the other tools are somewhat filtering in the other data they're trained on. Notebook is like creating a small LLM, right? A custom LLM just for the content you want, because you're using these sources. If a source doesn't pull in, like sometimes a source won't pull in if it's protected by a paywall, you can still copy and paste that content in. You can upload that content. You can add sources over here using the add button. And in the free versions, you can upload 50 sources. You'll see that because I'm using my paid Google account, I've upgraded it just a tiny bit. I'm not paying for Gemini, the $20 a month, but I pay like $2 a month or something like that to have more storage. And for some reason, that's giving me these upgraded versions of the NotebookLM tool as well. But for the free version, you can upload 50. So I can upload sources, I can paste in text, I can put in link. I don't typically connect my Google Drive because I don't love having everything all connected to all these pieces. But I do connect the sources I want. So it does a little overview, but then it comes up with this area where we can start typing and we can put in some of the prompts we want. So based on the industry reports, I start getting out what are the key skills that in this job that I'm going for, and it lists those out for me. And then I'm asking specifically to ONET. So I did upload an ONET link related to construction managers so that I wasn't only depending on job descriptions, but that kind of formal long description of what a construction manager is out of ONET. I uploaded that link and I'm asking NotebookLM now to kind of probe itself, to prompt itself, what are the key skills and responsibilities that the person has. So now instead of having to upload their resume, which you could also do if you wanted to anonymize, no contact info, probably take out some of the specifics I don't need and put that in here as well. I could do that. I'm using ONET to frame James's background in a little bit more generic way here before I do the continued stuff that we're going to do. Analysis, that's the right word. So then I asked it to create a skill translation table using the construction project management and the detect program managers. And it did that connection of how to frame it in the interview. Let's see if I can get, yeah, there we go. How we can frame that in the interview, management of personnel, active listening, problem solving, coordination. So it gave me some ideas of the skills that do align. And I can continue asking some of these questions. Maybe we're going to say here, what is the gap? So based on all the sources, what's the biggest skill gap between these two roles? And then I can just hit enter and it will come up with those roles for me. Very important when you're using NotebookLM that before you close the notebook, you want to save these things as notes over here on the side. And you'll see that after it gets done doing the prompt, it's giving me this little button to save to note. I want to do that so that I can come back to this information later and I don't lose it. But it gave me, here are some of the concepts missing from the product manager and then the construction role. So I've done a lot of work here, right? There's a lot of information. It may be a little bit overwhelming. And so how could I have it put this into something more specific? And so using all of this history, let's put it into a brief for the client with these headings: the target industry needs, their top skills, and then the potential skills gaps to address. Now, because I'm doing this in NotebookLM, I don't know if I'd be able to get suggestions to fill those gaps very easily because it's not going to go out to the internet and pull training courses and those types of things. But I could upload this brief to ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, and ask them to provide opportunities, suggestions, specific things in the market that would help me address these gaps. But now I've got this nice brief for James. And again, I can come to the very end of this and save this as a note. I can copy it and export it to Microsoft Word or Google Docs and get what I need out of it. And I can continue having a conversation with these materials. I just have to realize the limitation is it's only pulling from these sources unless I add in some other sources. That's all I'm talking with here. But I wanted to demo some of these other tools over here on the right. So one of the things that is new is the idea of these flashcards, and I haven't played around with these yet. So let's do it together. So in the flashcards, and what you see in most of these is that if you just click on it, it starts developing from what it thinks it should do, which might be fine. You could experiment with that. But the other thing you can do is click on the little pencil You can change the number of cards, you can change the level of difficulty, and you can put in an actual prompt. So based on the sources, identify key terms, acronyms, or methodologies related to a tech program manager, not found in construction project manager, so that my client can practice. Let's see what it does. It may take a minute. So while it's doing that, we could play with something else, like let's say the quiz. So we're going to do the same thing inside of the quiz functionality here. Click on the little pencil. We could say fewer or more, easy or hard, and then I've got my prompt there. 5 multiple choice quiz based on the industry reports, gaining my understanding of new responsibilities, must-have skills, emerging trends in the industry. Let's see what we get. So this allows us to create, and it's, Google does a lot for educators. So they're setting these up for educators to use. I don't know that we'd consider ourselves as career coaches, educators, maybe, even if we don't work in the education sector, but it does allow us to create some tools that our client could use to deepen their understanding of their search. And so let's see. Oh, we've got our flashcards that have generated here. And we can close this out. We can pop it out so that you can see what we've got. What is the primary difference in scope between a program and a project manager? And ooh, fun. And then you can click on see the answer. So it might be, it'd have to be the right client to think that this was cool. Maybe younger clients, or maybe clients that are just more into gamifying things that are of any age. But it's fun. Then I can click back here to go back to my studio. And now I've got my quiz as well that I can run through the questions. And you can see that it developed the questions. It also can give me a hint so that I can use these tools with my clients. Now, in addition to this, of course, we could create an audio overview. Maybe it would be the script for them about their transferable skills, or it could have based on this skills gap and the must-have skills, generate 5 challenging behavioral interview questions. So I could use that in the prompts area. Here, I'll put that in here instead of just saying it. So I could come back to this area and start typing and put in that prompt about the skills gaps and the 5 challenging behavioral interview questions. It'd be even better if I had a job description for a specific job, but since my client's just exploring the connections here, I'd just see what I get without that. And so it gives me those interview questions. Now you might say I could do this with ChatGPT, and you could, but remember these are a closed system, so it's not going to be infiltrated by someone's weird thought on Reddit or whatever that might be. And it doesn't have to be an either or. We could do it on some of those platforms and see what we get, and then also do it in here with this kind of closed system and see what we get. And you could do, a report, and it gives you some suggestions. You can also type prompts in here to do your own comprehensive career guide for someone choosing. Sure, let's see what that says, right? So it gives you some ideas of new things that you can do. Obviously, you could do the video overview. That's just going to take a while to generate. Those take maybe even up to 5 minutes to generate. Audio overview that maybe they could listen to the trends in the industry while they're walking or whatever. And then the mind map, I don't tend to use as often, but we could press that mind map button. That one you don't get a little pencil to edit. It just is going to do whatever it thinks is the best idea for a mind map. So we get the project versus program manager differences, and then you can click on those core differences, squish them back, and look at the different areas that it's finding similarities and differences. So there's a ton of ways you could use this. When you're deciding, is this the best tool for me? You're wanting a closed system, specific sources that are important to you to use, both from industry research as well as possibly from the client, being careful of personally identifying information. And now you've got it in this closed system where you're using that information to create collateral, to not collateral like a resume, but like the quiz, the flashcards, the brief, all of that's going to have this closed system. If you want to expand that into, researching degree programs or certifications or networking groups, NotebookLM is probably not going to be your place. So it can create the structure, the background, and help narrow things down, put it into executive summary, make it easier to comprehend. And then you might upload some of that information or use some of those prompts in a tool that's connected to the internet to be able to do the rest of the research, right? Networking groups and target companies and all of the other things that you might want to research. Once that person is ready, you'd move into a different system to do that. NotebookLM is not going to be your tool for that. So Emily, I hope that's helpful in terms of how you could use that for your clients, for your material, right? You could be the source. You could upload all of your sources, your transcripts, etc., and make a notebook of your materials for your clients, for your courses, just like I have done. If you go to our website, and I'll just show you how this looks here, and our latest blog, that shows you how you could incorporate this. So we've taken our audio overview, downloaded it, put it into Canva, and in Canva, then I can add the visual. So you see the video here that I've embedded in our blog. This is the audio overview. I could do the video overview as well. I don't know. I like the audio overviews. I find they're just so smart. They pull out the most poignant points. They just make a great use of the sources that I upload. The videos have honestly been a little hit or miss in terms of whether or not they hit the points I want them to hit. I have to do better prompting to make sure the videos get that, whereas the audio, it just does it really well. So I've taken the audio, put it into Canva, made it into a video, upload it to YouTube, and now it's another way that people can consume the newsletter, right? If they don't want to read the whole thing, they can consume the newsletter in this audio that's a podcast on YouTube. When you're creating content, especially as a business owner, but even as someone in an educational institution, to give people multiple ways that they can learn from it is smart, right? It helps them, and it gets you more FaceTime, if you will, so that they remember that content. So if you haven't come here and checked out our latest blog with our information, I'll drop that link in the chats around the different platforms that we're on, and you can come in here and check that out. The whole point of these tools is to help your clients get their goals accomplished. So when you're figuring out which tool is the best use, that's the whole point. We don't want to be doing it just because it's a new shiny object. It's fun. Yes, it is. But you're thinking, in what ways could I use this tool to create different learning modalities, to have reminders, to gamify the process for my client a little bit if they're wanting that. And now you don't have to put all the effort into this, right? The flashcards, the quiz, the video, pretty cool way to use these tools and create those multimodal learning tools and on your own, even as a solopreneur. So I hope that's helpful. And we will see you Tuesday. We're going to be talking about how we can help clients create more durable careers on Tuesday. And then watch out, because this month we've got a lot of great stuff coming at you because it's Career Development Month. On the 18th, we'll be previewing some of the speakers for our next career symposium that's in person in April of 2026 in San Diego. Can't wait to go to San Diego, be on the beach. And then on the 25th, we're going to do a deep dive into AI in hiring and what really matters to our clients, because there's so many myths still out there. And as I was listening to Martin Redstone talk yesterday during our final Career Jam presentation, and he was talking about this phantom that our clients are wasting so much time, and maybe even some of us, on this AI compliant resume or ATS compliant resume. And that's not really where we need to be focusing our efforts for job seekers today. Yes, hiring is AI enabled, but that has very little to do with the way it reads resumes, because that technology has been around for almost a decade, and it has much more to do with how they're being sourced, how interviews are shifting, and other things our clients need to be thinking about, not wasting time on the format of their resume. So just a little preview there for the rest of our Trend Tuesday lives, looking out into November and Career Development Month. So happy Career Development Month, everyone, and we'll see you on Tuesday.